Twilight Sparkle's journey has gone on for many years, and we are going to look back at how she developed from this young filly to this pony who rules all of Equestria and beyond, and of course take a peek at what she might be doing now. Anyway, for every single season that we have gone through in Generation 4, we're going to be answering the question, who is Twilight Sparkle? Starting with the beginning of Season 1, who is Twilight Sparkle? Twilight Sparkle, in the very first episode, is obviously the student of Princess Celestia who is making a living in Ponyville, and friends aren't really her priority. She puts her studies above all of that. And eventually she would run into 5 different ponies who are in charge of different parts of the Summer Sun celebration, though interestingly enough, if she would have run into any other 5 ponies that day, things might have gone very differently down the line. But eventually she beats Nightmare Moon in the first 2 episodes, and in the following episodes of this season, it has all been about deepening these friendships in episodes like Dragonshy, where she had to learn to trust Fluttershy in staring down the dragon, and in Swarm of the Century, where she had to trust Pinkie Pie in being able to have a solution to the infestation of Paris sprites, or probably one of the most iconic ones in Winter Wrap-Up, where she also learns to begin to trust in her own abilities to lead a group of ponies. And I would say this ultimately culminates in the best night ever, which is the night of the Grand Galloping Gala, which is also one of these episodes that really showcases how she has begun to trust her newfound friends and ultimately experience what everyone would call the best night ever, including Princess Celestia. But let's go on to the second season and see who is Twilight Sparkle. Twilight Sparkle is a good friend who's becoming more attuned to who she wants to be, and that is more apparent than ever so far in Return of Harmony, where the letters that she has written to Princess Celestia, all the friendship letters that she has made with the main 6 and also some ponies in Ponyville, who ultimately help her to escape becoming corrupted by Discord magic, helping her bring her back who she is, but of course getting her friends back as well and ultimately sealing Discord back in with the elements of harmony. But this continues. She continues to learning to fight for her friends. Luna Eclipse would also be an interesting episode to include here because she has to convince someone else who sort of excluded herself with Princess Luna, who is sort of like new and afraid because of what her past was in Twilight, is there to help the new pony to become part of Ponyville, not just from a species level, but of course on a mental level as well, to become part of the community. And of course the fight continues in a Canterlot wedding where she has to fight Queen Chrysalis in something that is almost the opposite to the very first episode, where, you know, it's her friends that save Twilight Sparkle, but in this finale it is Twilight Sparkle who saves her friends from Chrysalis and all the evil changelings. And that really brings us to Season 3, and once again we must ask, who is Twilight Sparkle? Following up on what Season 2 was, we can now safely say Twilight is beginning to be a leader who has shown that she cares about her friends. The short season is a true arc in a way of what Twilight Sparkle was at the beginning. It begins with Twilight Sparkle leading her friends into the Crystal Empire, and this time she's not only fighting for her friends, but for the fate of a whole nation, as you might want to say it, and that being, of course, the Crystal Ponies themselves. And while fighting King Sombra when the time was right, she wasn't afraid to put the fate of the Crystal Empire into Spike's hands when she had to pass the Crystal Heart on so Spike could then put the heart in the pedestal and save the Crystal Empire. And an important lesson that she learns here is that leadership requires delegation, and delegation requires trust and friendship, and that is a perfect way to continue to answer this question of who's Twilight Sparkle for the remainder of Season 3. In Magic Duel, we pretty much get the same message where Twilight Sparkle learns to not just stand up for her friends, but for all of Ponyville when Trixie returns. And of course, just like in the first episode of Season 3, she also ultimately learns to delegate responsibilities to her friends in ultimately helping her to take back Ponyville and getting rid of Trixie. And of course, showing every pony that friendship really is magical. But I think the biggest and I'd say the most responsibility that she has passed on to another pony would be in Keep Calm and Flutter On, when she passes the responsibility of looking after Discord down to Fluttershy, and as we all know, that was the correct decision because Fluttershy turned Discord into good. But of course, this all comes full circle in the final episode of Season 3, The Magical Mystery Cured. Twilight Sparkle becomes someone who has learned to trust her friends, which is almost the opposite of what happens at the beginning of the very first episode in Season 1. She's also someone who is there for them now, trying to remind her friends of who they are. Not just Twilight Sparkle finding herself like it was in Season 2, and much like it happened at the beginning of Season 1 where Twilight Sparkle lost herself and who she was, it was now up to her again to remind her friends of who they are, and of course reaffirming the friendships with them that she made. Really deepening the feelings for them, showing empathy when their talents are literally mixed up, and that feeling of true friendship ultimately allows her to complete Star Swirl's spell and allowing her to become the alicorn princess that she is. Which leads right into the question of Season 4, who is Twilight Sparkle? Twilight Sparkle is an alicorn princess who's trying to find her purpose, how she can fit in and what responsibilities that she can take care of. But she also learns to become a mentor in episodes like Princess Twilight Sparkle, where chaos reigns supreme, and she is the one to guide her friends into finding Princess Celestia and Twilight, but also for younger ponies, like in Twilight Time, where she teaches the Cutie Mark Crusaders a few lessons, and ultimately in Twilight's Kingdom, of course, she shows up doing exactly that. When everyone has lost their magic, she is the one who's willing to give up her own just to save her friends, and taking responsibility for that. But of course, she's also put into the responsibility of the magic of 4 alicorns, and all of Equestria's fate is essentially in her hooves. And of course, she pulls through, which leads us into Season 5, and once again, we have to ask, who is Twilight Sparkle? Twilight Sparkle is the alicorn of friendship, and who's beginning to learn to spread her ideas and messages as the Princess of Friendship, and also learns more about delegating her responsibilities, and it becomes ever so apparent with the new tool that she has, being the Crystal Table, which sends her friends into various friendship missions that she would have usually had to do on her own. But of course, her being the Princess of Friendship, she can rely on her friends. That is something that she's learned. In episodes like the Cutie Mark, where Twilight and her friends are sent to the village of Starlight, and ultimately they save every pony using the ideals of friendship that she has learned over the past 4 seasons to convince the entire village of what true friendship is versus what someone who was faking it like Starlight back then, even though it takes a separate episode to convince her. The next episode that is important here for Twilight's character development is Castle Sweet Castle, where Twilight Sparkle gets to look back at the memories, at everything that has made her who she is, but also this episode tells us that it's important to make a new one stepping forward with the friends that she has made. A key information, every pony, for this and following seasons. Amending Fences, also an important one, is where when she reconciles with her past friends in order to move forward, in order to make great memories. What about Discord? Of course, I have to mention this as well because it's the first time that we sort of see Twilight with a big inner conflict about whether she has a right to feel jealous. Even though Twilight Sparkle was set up by Discord, she ultimately learns that it is okay the way that she feels and that it is great to talk about her friends. And both of those lessons play a key role in the Cutie Remark, where Twilight Sparkle convinces Starlight that she should give friendship another chance, that friendships can be remade and amended, like in Amending Fences, with old-time friends, and she learns that she can't convince this pony by force, but by talking about her past, about Sunburst, and giving him and other friendships a chance in her life. The thing that Twilight Sparkle has learned over the past 5 seasons, and passing that message on to another pony, which directly leads us into Season 6, and we once again have to ask, who is Twilight Sparkle? Twilight Sparkle is an alicorn princess who has begun to learn what it is like to become a mentor. Not just a princess who rules as she has in the past seasons, but someone who is actively trying to pass on her wisdom to another special pony. In this case, was Starlight, as a protege or student. And the first episode really shows this, as it is sort of a continuation of the previous, where she eventually learns to reconcile with Sunburst, much like Twilight did with her old friends back in the day. And this leads to them, of course, saving the Crystal Kingdom ultimately with Sunburst's help. No Second Princess also shows us a lot about Twilight's growth as a mentor when she tells Starlight to make new friends, and of course, initially, she's a little reluctant about that new friend being Trixie. Ultimately, she learns to trust into Starlight in making the right decision. And a similar thing happens in The Times They Are a Changeling, where Twilight learns to trust Spike in making a proper new friend in Thorax back then, every pony. And this is sort of a foretelling episode as well, though, that teaches us that not just ponies can be friends, but it can, go on to other creatures. And this is, of course, where we have to talk a bit about to where it all began, where Starlight essentially used everything that she has learned from Twilight Sparkle so far, using the magic of friendship to uniting the most unlikely band of ponies and creatures ever in Thorax, Discord, and of course Trixie, to fight back, invade the Changeling Hive, and save her friends, but also saving the Changelings and allowing them to get reformed, become colorful. And of course that means that Thorax becomes the ruler of the Changelings, something that Twilight ultimately began by making Starlight her student, every pony. This, of course, leads us into Season 7, and once again we have to ask the question, who is Twilight Sparkle? Twilight Sparkle is a pony who learns to follow in the footsteps of her mentor, Princess Celestia, and she does this by sending Starlight away from Ponyville to allow her to learn lessons like she did back when she was sent away from her home. And in A Royal Problem, this is very evident, but also Twilight learns something new when Starlight takes a different approach to a problem between Celestia and Luna than Twilight would have ever dared to. Twilight is super respectful, of course, to the alicorns, but Starlight takes a more direct approach, which allows her to ultimately solve the friendship problem, every pony. And this is where Twilight sort of learns that other ponies that come after her may do things differently, and that is a good thing. And both of those play a key role in the finale of the season, where Twilight is confronted with Starswirl the Bearded, one of her peers, and is reaffirmed in her ways. Because Starswirl, being super prideful, would have of course handled the friendship problem very differently, but ultimately she also learns that she has surpassed Starswirl the Bearded with her new methods, with not only how she treats friendship, but also how she passes it on to other ponies, and proving to herself that what Princess Celestia saw within her back in the day, she was right. She was right in making her the Princess of Friendship, because she could do things that none of her students so far could do. Think of all the students Princess Celestia had, seriously. But this leads us into Season 8, and once again we have to ask the question, who is Twilight Sparkle? And in Season 8, Twilight Sparkle is a ruling alicorn who is beginning to understand the weight of her decisions, every pony. And of course, with her establishing the friendship school, this becomes absolutely clear when she is once again challenged in her beliefs, like in the previous episode. Because Naysayer thinks they should be doing it differently because of some guidelines, but Twilight puts her hoof down and says, "I'm the Princess of Friendship. I do it my way because my way works." And that is when she begins to sort of learn to assert herself as a ruling alicorn, not just being a friend who looks out after everyone, but standing up for herself, for what she believes in. And the episode Friendship University does something very similar when she learns that someone has stolen her curriculum and tries to also run their own University of Friendship to make money. She goes in, puts her foot down, and ultimately tells everyone off for doing it wrongly despite her reputation in the line, or better said, because of her friendship reputation being on the line as a ruler, as someone who puts her foot down and says what goes. This is the first time where we learn that Twilight rules, and that is the important part. She rules as an alicorn. And of course, in the final episode, The Young Six, being sort of important, where these young six step into the hooves of what the elements of harmony used to be back when she was also still learning about her own element of magic, and Twilight learns to defend her school from villains in the past, and she is once again reaffirmed in her beliefs that it was correct to make the school a friendship and run it her way. And that ultimately allows them to defeat Cozy Glow and bring magic back to all of Equestria. And that leads us into Season 9, and we have to ask once more, who is Twilight Sparkle? This time we can safely say she's a ruler. She rules Equestria, and she's learning how to do that better, and because she has to. Because Luna and Celestia are retiring, she's officially put into the responsibility of all of Equestria. And Twilight Sparkle starts us off by having to deal with another Equestrian-level threat as King Sombra returns. He takes over Ponyville and eventually also Canterlot, and as it always happens, the villain is defeated by Twilight Sparkle and her friends, and they take back all of Equestria this time. But despite the position being in, she also still learns that she has the ability to grow, and one of the important lessons is that Twilight Sparkle understands that perfection is not good, and it can lead into a spot where you forget to enjoy your life. And the episode of Point of No Return shows this perfectly, where she still shows that she has potential to grow into things and to learn. And another episode that does this super well is Between Dark and Dawn, where Twilight Sparkle also understands that despite her being all the way at the top, she still has to understand that she needs to delegate things to other experts, even to other alicorns, like to Princess Celestia and Luna, who have stepped down, and that allows her, of course, to get more free time when she has ponies that take care of things that she can't do because she only has 4 hooves and 1 horn. And then there is the quasi-finale, with the ending of the end, where Twilight Sparkle is invaded by all the remaining enemies that exist, with Cozy Glow, with Chrysalis, and with T-Rex. And this time she loses her entire kingdom and is forced to retreat into the Crystal Empire, and she is overcome with doubt, thinking she may never be able to get back Equestria, thinking she failed as a ruler. And her friends, the very reason she is where she is right now, in that moment come to her aid, motivate her to try again and to fight, and the villains seem to be winning as they come down to one final fight, but this time the battle changes because all the ponies that she has brought into the school have spread her message across Equestria. Not just ponies, but griffins, changelings, everyone shows up, and all of Equestria bands together and takes down these 3 villains and creates one pretty nice statue. But this brings us into the true ending that we have to look into this season, and that is the last problem, where Twilight Sparkle has grown, a lot of time has passed, decades has passed, Twilight is sitting in Celestia's throne, even has the wavy hair, and she meets Lester Dawn, a pony who believes friendship is not important, and even as a weak thing. And this is a nice thing, having someone challenging Twilight Sparkle's beliefs. And in this point, Twilight Sparkle shows her a flashback of something that happened in the past and how she managed to understand how that may be not entirely true. And we see how Twilight Sparkle established the Council of Friendship so she can keep in touch with her friends, but still remain control over Equestria in her host because, you know, they're her friends and they have done things together for ages, and that's how she was able to keep in touch and keep her rule at the same time. And that shows us just how important delegation has become as a skill for her, and also how she learns to rule. And this does end the flashback, but this brings it together when she explains to Lester Dawn that friendships can be hard to maintain but are worth fighting for, as she has especially done so within the last few seasons. But of course, this brings the little question, why did Starlight not get any wings? That's a whole different book to open. But ponies, we can't conclude this without looking at least what could Twilight Sparkle be up to in Generation 5. Who is Twilight Sparkle in Generation 5? The answer is, we don't know, but we do know some things, and that is that Twilight Sparkle did have to sacrifice all of Equestria's magic, much like she did at the end of Generation 4, to save Equestria. So she did, in fact, use the lessons from the past, but Where's Twilight Sparkle now? We don't know. Did her over-reliance on delegation become her downfall? It is uncertain, but it is something that we may learn down the line. Alright, ponies, but I suppose this has been a long video. But I suppose with that, if you've learned something new about Twilight Sparkle, if you have thoughts about the purple princess who is still the most adorable of them all, leave it in the comments. Alright, ponies, but I suppose with that, I thank all you lovely ponies so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Remember, ponies, Twilight Sparkle best princess, fight me! Also, if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Be notified whenever there's a new video. There's new stuff every single day, including a pony tells you. There's gonna be a new cooking video soon. Surprise!